The air feels thick with tension as another argument erupts over something trivial, a forgotten chore, a misplaced item, or an innocent comment taken the wrong way. You've tried everything: communication exercises, date nights, even relationship counseling. Yet that inexplicable barrier remains, invisible but undeniably present, separating you from the harmony you once knew with your partner. This scenario plays out in countless homes across the world. Couples find themselves trapped in cycles of conflict, distance, and resentment that defy logical explanation. The most perplexing aspect: many of these relationships started beautifully, with genuine love and connection, before mysteriously deteriorating despite both partners' best efforts to save them. What if the root of these persistent problems exists beyond the realm of conventional relationship advice? What if the barrier between you and your partner isn't psychological or emotional, but spiritual in nature? In Islamic tradition, relationship difficulties often have dimensions that extend beyond the physical world. Negative spiritual energies, influences, and imbalances can create powerful disruptions in even the strongest bonds. These spiritual roots remain unaddressed by conventional relationship counseling, which focuses exclusively on psychological and communication-based approaches. This oversight explains why so many couples find themselves trapped in cycles of conflict despite doing everything right, according to relationship experts. They're addressing the symptoms while the true cause, the spiritual imbalance, continues to undermine their connection. The invisible barrier: how spiritual issues manifest in relationships. When spiritual issues affect a relationship, they often create patterns that seem inexplicable through conventional understanding. These manifestations can be subtle at first, but gradually intensify until they threaten the very foundation of the relationship. Consider the case of a loving marriage that suddenly develops an atmosphere of constant irritation and conflict. The partners, once deeply connected, find themselves feeling emotionally distant despite physical proximity. Small disagreements escalate into major arguments with surprising intensity. Both individuals feel a strange resistance to reconciliation, as though an invisible force pushes them apart even when they consciously want to come together. This resistance often manifests as communication breakdowns that defy typical explanations. Words become misinterpreted with alarming frequency. Intentions are consistently misunderstood. The emotional atmosphere becomes charged with negativity that neither partner intentionally created. In Islamic spiritual understanding, these patterns often indicate the presence of negative energies affecting the spiritual field of the relationship. Just as our physical bodies can experience illness, our spiritual connections can experience disruptions that require specific spiritual remedies. Signs your relationship may be affected by spiritual issues. Recognizing the spiritual dimension of relationship problems represents the first step toward addressing them effectively. Several patterns typically indicate that spiritual factors may be contributing to relationship difficulties. The first sign involves the sudden onset of relationship problems without any clear trigger. Many couples describe their connection as having changed overnight, or recall a specific period when their relationship inexplicably shifted from harmony to conflict. This abrupt transition often signals a spiritual influence rather than a natural evolution of the relationship. Another indicator is the presence of persistent negativity that seems to have a life of its own. The relationship feels shrouded in a cloud of pessimism, irritation, or hostility that neither partner consciously generates. This atmosphere persists regardless of external circumstances. Even during times that should be joyful, the heaviness remains. Dreams often provide windows into spiritual influences. Recurring nightmares involving your partner, dreams of conflict or separation, or disturbing dream imagery related to your relationship may indicate spiritual disruption affecting your bond while you sleep. In Islamic tradition, dreams carry significant spiritual meaning and can reveal influences not immediately apparent in waking life. Physical symptoms that coincide with relationship difficulties can also signal spiritual causes. Unexplained fatigue when in your partner's presence, headaches that develop during interactions, or a sense of physical heaviness in shared spaces may indicate negative spiritual energies affecting both the relationship and physical well-being. Perhaps most telling is the failure of conventional solutions to produce lasting improvement. Couples who find that communication techniques, counseling, and other standard approaches bring only temporary relief before problems resurface are often dealing with spiritual root causes that require spiritual solutions. The connection between spiritual balance and relationship harmony. The Quran offers profound insights into the spiritual nature of marital harmony. In Surah Ar-Rum 30:21, Allah says, "And of His signs is that He created for you from yourselves mates that you may find tranquility in them, and He placed between you affection and mercy. Indeed, in that are signs for a people who give thought." This verse reveals the divine nature of the bond between spouses, a connection created by Allah and infused with spiritual elements of tranquility, sakina, affection, mawadda, and mercy, rahma. These qualities represent spiritual energies that flow between partners in a healthy relationship. When negative spiritual influences disrupt this flow, the divine qualities become blocked or diminished. The relationship loses its spiritual foundation, leaving only the material aspects of the connection. Without the spiritual dimension functioning properly, even couples who care deeply for each other find themselves unable to translate that care into harmonious daily interactions. This explains why addressing spiritual imbalances often produces remarkable transformations in troubled relationships. By restoring the proper spiritual foundation, couples rediscover the tranquility, affection, and mercy that Allah intended for their bond. The invisible barrier dissolves, allowing their natural connection to flow unimpeded. The ancient Islamic tradition of spiritual protection in relationships. Islamic tradition offers rich resources for addressing the spiritual dimensions of relationship difficulties. For centuries, Muslim spiritual healers have recognized that the health of a marriage or relationship depends not only on the actions and attitudes of the partners, but also on the spiritual environment surrounding them. The Prophet Muhammad himself emphasized the importance of spiritual protection within the family unit. He taught specific prayers, du'as, for maintaining harmony between spouses and protecting the household from negative influences. These practices acknowledge the reality that spiritual factors significantly impact family relationships. In the Islamic spiritual tradition, certain Quranic verses hold particular power for purifying relationships and removing negative energies that create discord between partners. These verses, when properly applied through traditional methods, create a protective spiritual field around the relationship, shielding it from harmful influences and restoring its natural harmony. One of the most effective traditional methods for applying these powerful Quranic verses involves the creation of talismans or taweez. These sacred objects serve as physical vessels for spiritual protection, carrying the divine words and energies of the Quran into the material realm of the relationship. Understanding Quranic talismans. A spiritual solution for relationship healing. Quranic talismans represent one of the most misunderstood aspects of Islamic spiritual tradition. Far from being mere superstition, authentic talismans embody a sophisticated spiritual technology that bridges the divine words of the Quran with the practical realities of human relationships. At their essence, properly created Quranic talismans contain specially selected verses from the Quran that address specific spiritual issues affecting a relationship. These verses are written in traditional Arabic script according to precise spiritual principles that have been preserved through generations of Islamic spiritual practice. The power of these talismans comes not from the physical object itself, but from the divine words it contains and the spiritual intention with which it is created. The Quran states in Surah Al-Isra 17-82, "And we send down the Quran, that which is a healing and a mercy to those who believe." The talisman serves as a vessel for channeling this healing and mercy into situations where spiritual blockages have created relationship discord. Unlike mass-produced amulets or generic spiritual objects, authentic Quranic talismans must be custom created for the specific individuals and relationship circumstances they will address. The spiritual practitioner must select the appropriate Quranic verses based on the particular spiritual imbalances affecting the relationship, ensuring that the divine remedy precisely matches the spiritual root of the problem. How Quranic talismans address the spiritual roots of relationship problems. When relationship difficulties stem from spiritual causes, Quranic talismans work on multiple levels to restore harmony. First, they create a protective spiritual field around the relationship, preventing further negative influences from affecting the bond between partners. This protection allows the natural connection between the individuals to re-emerge without constant spiritual interference. Second, talismans help dissolve existing negative energies that have accumulated within the relationship. Just as medicine clears an infection from the physical body, the spiritual power of Quranic verses clears spiritual disruptions from the relationship. Partners often report feeling a lifting of heaviness or tension as these energies dissipate. Third, authentic talismans help restore the divine qualities mentioned in the Quran, tranquility, affection, and mercy, to their proper flow within the relationship. As these spiritual energies return to their natural state, couples typically experience a spontaneous improvement in communication, emotional connection, and mutual understanding. Finally, Quranic talismans strengthen the spiritual bond between partners on a fundamental level. In Islamic understanding, a marriage represents not just a social contract, but a spiritual connection created by Allah. Talismans help reinforce this divine connection, making the relationship more resilient against future challenges. When to consider a spiritual approach to relationship healing. While conventional relationship advice offers valuable tools for addressing many common issues, certain situations particularly indicate the need for spiritual intervention. Understanding these circumstances can help couples determine when to explore spiritual solutions alongside conventional approaches. Consider seeking spiritual help when relationship problems develop suddenly and intensely without a clear cause. When a previously harmonious relationship abruptly deteriorates despite no significant life changes or conflicts, spiritual factors often play a role. This sudden onset distinguishes spiritually rooted problems from those that develop gradually through communication issues or compatibility challenges. Another indicator involves the sense that an invisible barrier exists between you and your partner. Many couples describe feeling as though they're speaking different languages, or that their words never reach each other as intended. This invisible wall often signals spiritual interference, disrupting the natural connection between partners. Recurring relationship patterns that resist all attempts at resolution also suggest spiritual root causes. When couples find themselves having the same conflicts repeatedly, despite sincere efforts to change their communication patterns and behaviors, spiritual factors may be perpetuating these cycles. Physical symptoms that coincide with relationship difficulties, particularly those that conventional medicine cannot explain, often indicate spiritual influences affecting both the relationship and physical well-being. These might include chronic fatigue, sleep disturbances, or physical discomfort that emerges specifically in the context of the relationship. Ultimately, intuition plays an important role in recognizing spiritually rooted relationship problems. Many individuals report a deep inner knowing that something beyond the ordinary is affecting their relationship. This intuitive recognition should not be dismissed, as it often reflects spiritual awareness that precedes conscious understanding. The process of creating a custom Quranic talisman for relationship healing. Authentic Quranic talismans cannot be mass-produced or created through mechanical processes. Each requires careful spiritual work performed by a knowledgeable practitioner with proper training in Islamic spiritual traditions. The creation process involves several essential elements that ensure the talisman's spiritual efficacy. First, the spiritual practitioner must understand the specific nature of the relationship difficulties being experienced. This requires gathering information about the individuals involved, including their full names and their mother's names, which helps identify their unique spiritual signatures. A photograph may also be requested to help the practitioner connect with the spiritual essence of the individuals. With this information, the practitioner conducts a spiritual assessment to identify the precise spiritual imbalances affecting the relationship. This assessment reveals which negative energies may be present, which spiritual connections need strengthening, and which protective elements should be included in the talisman. Based on this assessment, specific Quranic verses are selected that address the particular spiritual needs of the relationship. These verses must be written by hand in traditional Arabic script, often using special inks that enhance their spiritual properties. The practitioner performs specific prayers and rituals during this writing process, imbuing the talisman with spiritual energy beyond the physical materials used. Once completed, the custom-made talisman is prepared for delivery to the individuals it will help. Clear instructions are provided regarding how to properly wear, carry, or place the talisman for maximum benefit. These instructions vary based on the specific spiritual issues being addressed and the form of the talisman created. The emotional cost of ignoring spiritual roots in relationship problems. The decision to address the spiritual dimensions of relationship difficulties is ultimately a deeply personal one. However, understanding the potential emotional costs of leaving these spiritual roots unaddressed can help couples make informed choices about their approach to relationship healing. When spiritual causes of relationship problems remain unaddressed, couples often experience increasing frustration and helplessness as conventional solutions fail to produce lasting results. This frustration frequently leads to a sense of defeat and resignation, with partners eventually concluding that their relationship cannot be saved despite their genuine love for each other. The emotional toll extends beyond the relationship itself. Individuals struggling with spiritually rooted relationship problems often experience diminished self-confidence and self-worth as they question their ability to maintain healthy connections. The persistent sense of failure despite sincere efforts creates deep emotional wounds that can affect all areas of life. Perhaps most painful is the unnecessary loss of relationships that could have thrived if the spiritual dimensions had been properly addressed. Many couples separate or divorce because they believe they have exhausted all possible solutions, unaware that the spiritual roots of their difficulties remain untreated. This emotional cost highlights the importance of considering all dimensions of relationship healing: physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual. A truly holistic approach recognizes that human relationships exist on multiple levels of reality and require solutions that address all these dimensions. Taking the next step, seeking spiritual help for your relationship. If you recognize the signs of spiritually rooted relationship problems in your own situation, considering a spiritual approach to healing represents a meaningful step toward restoring harmony and connection. The process begins with acknowledging the possibility that factors beyond the conventional understanding may be affecting your relationship. Finding authentic spiritual help requires discernment. Not all who claim to offer spiritual solutions possess the knowledge, training, and ethical foundation necessary for effective spiritual work. In the Islamic tradition, authentic practitioners ground their work firmly in Quranic principles and prophetic teachings, avoiding practices that contradict Islamic spiritual ethics. A custom-made Quranic talisman, created by a knowledgeable practitioner, offers a powerful spiritual tool for addressing relationship difficulties at their root. These talismans work on the spiritual level to remove negative influences, restore positive spiritual energies, and strengthen the divine connection between partners. To begin the process of obtaining a custom-made Quranic talisman for relationship healing, reach out via email at support@ruhanianlinespiritualhelp.co.uk or through WhatsApp messages at +44 77344 08262. You'll need to provide your full name, your mother's name, a photograph, and a description of the relationship difficulties you're experiencing. This information allows for the creation of a talisman specifically designed to address your unique spiritual situation. Remember that spiritual healing works alongside, not in place of, practical relationship efforts. As negative spiritual influences are removed and positive spiritual connections are restored, partners often find themselves naturally implementing healthier communication patterns and emotional responses. The spiritual and practical dimensions of relationship healing work in harmony to create lasting positive change.